I have been using a collection of round objects to draw circles, but decided it's time to make a proper compass. Here is a simple design good for larger circles, and a second, more complex build that can make a smaller circle. Here are some measured drawings. Now I'll show you the build. I start off by milling down some 5/8 inch wide hickory stock to 1/2 inch and 3/8 inch thickness. The pivot leg is cut to 9.5 inches in length, and the pencil leg is cut to about 6.5 inches, both from 3/8 inch stock. The hinge block is 1/2 by 1.5 inches, and the nut block is 3/8 by 1.25. Standard pencils are 1/4 inch hexagons, so the pencil slot and depth should be a little larger than that. I milled the dado in 1/2 inch stock using 3 passes on the table saw and cut them to 3-inch lengths. The pencil leg is too thin to accept the 1/4 inch hinge pin, so I made up some 1/8 inch strips to thicken the top. The whole leg could have been made from 1/2 inch stock, but I like the look of this better. The bottom of the pencil leg needs to be at a 60-degree angle so the pencil can meet at the center point for small radius circles. I also need a small brace block cut from 1/2 inch stock to reinforce the joint. The hinge block needs a 3/16 inch thick tongue and a 1/2 inch long, which I'll mark with a marking gauge and cut out with a bandsaw. The nut block needs a 3/8 inch recess hole to hold the nut and a hole to pass a number 10 bolt. I sand a small chamfer on the brace, the pencil holder, and the nut and the hinge blocks just to dress things up a little bit. A number 10 nut is superglued into the underside of the nut block. Then the pencil holder leg assembly can be glued up, clamped, and left to set up. The top of the pivot leg has a small knob. I cut a square profile 3/4 inches long, then turn it into a 5/16 inch dowel using a chisel and my homemade doweling tool. The hinge block can then be glued and clamped in place. The pivot knob is made from 3/8 inch outer diameter soft copper tubing. I cut a 7/8 inch length of tube and file the end smooth using an inserted 5/16 inch dowel to keep it from deforming under pressure. I made a little 5/16 inch mandrel with a 3/4 inch stop to hold the tube, and then spun it in the hand drill and applied side pressure to form a small dome on the top of the tube. A little light sanding up to 320 grit gives it the finish I want. A simple bolt doesn't have the look I want, nor is it thick enough to be easy to turn with my fingers. By sandwiching a copper washer between the head and a bolt, I can make a nice-looking thumb wheel. A dab of superglue fixes the nut, bolt, and washer in place, then I file down the excess, then peen the copper to fill the gap between the nut and the head. Then I file the assembly round and the top of the nut flat. I then put it in the hand drill and sand it round and smooth up to a 320 grit. After gluing the nut block in place, I make the pivot points from some 1/8 inch diameter nails. After cutting off the heads, I turn them against a 120 grit emery paper to make a nice looking point. After some preliminary sanding to get all the leg parts flush, I cut the slot for the hinge tongue. The slot is cut deep to give some flex so that the tightened nut will make a good friction fit. After some trimming and test fitting, the 1/4 inch hinge hole is very carefully drilled through the assembly legs. This probably should have been done earlier so that I don't waste any work if I made a mistake. The ends of the pencil leg are then rounded over on the sander so it can pivot freely. The hole for the 1/8 inch pivot pin is marked and drilled, and a taper is sanded into the tip, partially for looks and partially to improve the visibility of the pencil and pivot tips. After a careful hand sanding, the piece is finished with boiled linseed oil. Pivot knob is epoxied in place as well as the nut and the washers for the pivot pin. Well, this sure beats digging around the shop trying to find the right sized round object for making circles. I suppose there's a lot of ways to get this job done simpler, but if efficiency was the point, maybe I should have just bought that compass at the home improvement store for $9.99. All it needs now is a box to hold it. Maybe that'll be my next project. Thanks for watching.